Antonio da Sangallo the Younger, 1484, 1546. So, what happened here? Yeah, mai aveam un engraving. Now I talk in Romanian, sorry. Usually these engravings are not accurate because they were, you know, the portraiture was done after the death of the of the artist or the architect, and you know, it is approximate. But let's imagine that this was Antonio da Sangallo, architetto. So Antonio da Sangallo the Younger, born on the 12th of April 1484, also known as Antonio da San Gallo, was an Italian architect active during the Renaissance, mainly in Rome and the Papal States. He was part of a rich family in the field, rich not financially, a family of architects and artists, the Sangallo family. So he was one of them. That's why he's called the Younger. And I understood Michelangelo hated all of them. Some drawings by Antonio da Sangallo the Younger. Actually, this one seems to be too precise to be by him. Was probably done by a student at Bartlett or somewhere where they studied this. Yes, this is possible. This was his, you know, scribbling with lots of numbers. But even here, I have some doubts. I don't know. Some of the information on the web is needs a double checking. But this one, that, yes, seems to be. I see a lot of numbers, and I know that he was an excellent builder. You know, kind of an engineer as well. And it's possible that this drawing indeed is his, with all the calculations and so on. Anyway, this was his proposal for St. Peter in Rome. Very different in a way for what was built, particularly because of the two towers. But I will arrive at this a little later. He was actually, after 1520, he was the chief architect of St. Peter, was in charge of building St. Peter. There were other people there involved, of course. Anyway, drawings. All these people drew well because they were masters, and they were also artists sometimes. Now, the Basilica della Santa Casa in Loreto, Santa Casa, you know, the sacred house or shrine. It's this one here in Loreto. What can we say? A Renaissance building. They built churches. They didn't build social housing. I think in this respect, I appreciate more our time. But it was a different society, a different structure of the society. So I guess we cannot accuse them too much. They built churches and palaces, and this is the actual shrine. Interesting, the walls, now the rough walls, left and right. It's a fragment of the church, a chapel within the church. There are also other parts, as you can see, quite elaborate, and these are memorials. And until the 19th century, a lot of architecture, as you know, was dealing with the afterlife. Actually, there was a lot of interest in memorialization, something we don't have these days. Anyway, Cappella Paolina, the Sala Regia, and the Scala Regia in the Vatican. I thought the Scala Regia, the famous Scala Regia in the Vatican, was by Bernini, but thanks to this new study, I learned that actually was done by Antonio da Sangallo, and Bernini provided just the sculptures. So we'll look first at the Cappella Paolina, which is this one, and it is impressive, of course. Then we look at what is called Sala Regia or Regia. I don't know if I pronounce well. I should have known a little bit of Italian because I worked in Rome for a while, but for some strange reason, I didn't learn Italian, which is almost unacceptable, if not downright shame. Anyway, this is it, Scala Regia. Not bad, no? I mean, wow, you know, and again, try to eliminate the paintings, the ornaments, and so on, and what do you get? So, coming back to my obsession with the need to bring back art to architecture, can we imagine how this would have been without the participation of the artists? Now, of course, this is a religious building, is a unique building, is a public building, I understand. But I still think there is a great need to unite again the arts, and probably for working in towards the queen of the arts, that is architecture. I would bring back even bring back. I would I would use also the medias of today. Film, yes, film. Try to the connection between the first art, if we are to consider architecture the first art, although probably dance was the first art, I don't know. And the last one, the seventh art, which is film. Um, anyway, there is a student here from the second year who would like to make a presentation about the relationship between film and architecture, and I more than welcome it.
Dan,
Okay.
I have a question. Uh,
Yes.
uh, if we go back 2 slides, uh, yeah, here the architect knew that these paintings are going to come on the wall. Then why did he make the flooring and ceiling so complex? Either one could have been left a little blank to emphasize the paintings, maybe.
I don't know. I mean, I know there is this conception that you know, we have to have whiteness everywhere so the paintings will be seen better. But this is again, we are talking about the unity of the arts. So the painting is not something separate from the room. Why should the room be white and without ornaments and just have the paintings? It's a totality. It's a whole work. It might appear to be busy. I don't know. To me, it's not busy. It's a building. It's a room from 5 centuries ago, and they 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 didn't have this obsession with cleanness and clean surfaces. No, they love to cover everything. It was horror vacui. They hated incompleteness, and they considered it. I mean, I really wonder what they would have thought about white cubes at that time. Probably would have been inconceivable for them. What do you mean a white cube? It's too simplistic, too. No, no, no. It was not their conception about the world and architecture and art, obviously. Otherwise, it would have been easy for them to just make a rectangular white room and that's it. But obviously, they didn't. Anyway, look at this. This is the great Scala Regia or Regia. I love this, and I thought that it was done by Bernini, but Bernini did just the sculptures. The architecture is by Antonio da Sangallo the Younger. Bravo to him, because it's truly a magnificent and symbolically charged as well. It's almost you are walking up towards God. Is ascension, and we'll see more pictures. I will come back to them, but I want you to see first the drawings. Here, you see the plan, which is accentuates the perspective because it gets narrower towards the top, and it's really almost I don't know how to call it, but I see here symbolic meanings. It's a great work, and it was done by Antonio da Sangallo. Here you see maybe the drawing is from his time, and maybe even his hand. I don't know. Now, I read that Bernini did the sculptures. I don't see a lot of sculptures. Maybe uh, you know the columns were done by Bernini is possible. But it is a great, and maybe, yeah, what is here as well, I don't know. This seems to be from a later period somehow. I don't know. But Antonio da Sangallo did this arrangement, this with a stair, and Bernini contributed too with something. So you had already two great names involved here. Maybe others were as well. The Vatican, of course. He was friends with Raphael, the great painter and architect. Just mentioning their names and makes me, I don't know, I vibrate to the names, no? Raphael, Michelangelo, Bernini, Antonio da Sangallo. I think this warms up the soul, really, this, in essence, it's beauty. We are talking about beauty. That's what we are talking about. So, the Vatican, Scala Regia or Regia, Antonio da Sangallo, with the participation also of Bernini, but I don't see too many sculptures besides what is going on here. Maybe at the columns, who knows? Anyway, it is a great work and an interesting one too, because you are not going to see often this kind of stair with columns, attacking almost the stair, so to speak. But it does make sense in a way. This is for the public. This is for the solitary, tourist or monk or whatever. And it's also the theme of Trinity in a way, that it's a stair divided into three. This is also true at Biblioteca Laurentiana, with that stair that descends like a lava in the vestibule by Michelangelo. So, Antonio da Sangallo, we move forward old fortress. He built an old fortress in Livorno. I understood he did something also for Rome, but I have this picture, quite a big fortress indeed. He was an artist, but he was also an engineer. He was very good at building. I understood the church was built by one of his relatives, and it had problems at the foundations. So he was called to clean up the mess and make the building stand up, which he succeeded. So he was a very well respected and appreciated architect. Maybe that's why Michelangelo hated him. Who knows? Who knows? I'm tempted to think that the instincts of Michelangelo were correct. It is possible that there were some reasons that he hated Antonio da Sangallo. And look at the fort. It's not bad. I mean, because you have the water and you have the massive walls, and it's this. I like this conjunction between the solid walls, the massive walls, stability, and then the instability of water, so to speak. So you have both fragility and strength in close proximity. Well, there is obviously some fragility in the walls as well, because attacked by 5 centuries and the elements, rain, water, and so on. Still, this is from the early 16th century. Okay, we go to Palazzo Baldassini in Rome. It's an urban palace, so it's squeezed between other buildings. I don't know. I mean, there are many palaces. In some of them, like the Palazzo Farnese, Michelangelo contributed significantly there. Sometimes it's difficult to know precisely, because there were various architects involved, and some of them great, besides the one that we know of, like in this case, Antonio da Sangallo. This is interesting. This ceiling, you know, it's cryptical. It's almost esoteric. It has no colors. Maybe they didn't yet arrive at applying the color, but the images are, to me, they are cryptical. I don't know what they mean, but it's so they are almost like Egyptian hieroglyphs. Very interesting. But one thing is for sure, again, it didn't cross their mind to leave a ceiling, you know, empty, blank. No. The ceiling had to have pictorial narratives, and it was a rule. Now, Palazzo del Governatore, I don't know if it was demolished in 1936. I think I have one image with this, and it was a drawing which probably was done later. It was demolished. I mean, why would you demolish a building from the early 16th century? I don't know, but anyway, Palazzo Farnese, this is a very famous work, and is famous because it is an important palazzo in Rome, but also because besides the fact that he did the initial design, Michelangelo also had a role, and I will say a few things about this as well. Apparently, Michelangelo did this very powerful corniche, and he worked on the third floor. The work was begun on the designs, and I think is the embassy of France now in Palazzo Farnese in Rome. The building was begun based on the designs of Sangallo, da Sangallo, Antonio, because there are others, the Younger. Apparently also Michelangelo had a role also in the courtyard. So, you know, the work was not done by a single person, but in this case, he began it. He began the project. And here you see, you know, the courtyard, and, you know, it's a large palace. And I think France had a good taste, renting this famous building in Rome for their embassy. So what we see here for the student in architecture is that almost the square of the plan is identical with the square of the section. Palazzo Farnese, and it's true. I mean, here you see the resolute drama at the top of the building, which indeed has to do with Michelangelo's, you know, temperament and mentality and genius. So if you visit Rome after the pandemic, maybe you will not forget to take a look at Palazzo Farnese. Now, Palazzo Sacchetti, designed by Sangallo for himself. So this says something about his prestige. He was obviously well paid if he designed a famous palace for himself. And you'll see some images from the inside of the palace. Look at this. You know, I mean, what architect today would afford something like this? Look at this. Look at the floor, look at the ceiling, look at the walls. Not a square inch or a square centimeter is left black or white. Everything is covered. And this, well, it was said, Victor Hugo said that the book killed the cathedral, that until Gutenberg, when the books began to be published, in large numbers, the message, the narrative, was inscribed in the walls of the cathedral or in the walls of some other large buildings like this one. That's why, I mean, this kind of room was before the multiplication of books. So the narration of life had to take place in the flesh of the walls, so to speak, and ceilings and floor. That's why they it would have been inconceivable for them to have white walls. No, because it was, I don't know, I was thinking about this, and I'm not very convinced that I arrived at the right answer. But why are we so different from them? Because maybe we move too much, we simply take the car, we don't belong to a place. They belong to a place. This was a time when people didn't move to the left and to the right. They didn't have cars, they didn't have planes, they didn't have trams, they didn't have all the means of mobility that we have. So they belong to a place. This room was his room. I mean, he built it for himself, living there, and maybe walking from here to, I don't know, St. Peter or whatever. It was a different kind of life. And maybe, I was thinking that the pandemic somehow is forcing us to come back maybe to this kind of life where we move less, and the social distancing forces us to have a certain level of introversion, and to in other words, to become more static. But this static side would be compensated by an amplification of imaginative or imagistic work, like here. I don't know, maybe. Yes, the facade is not, but I don't know when this was drawn. It's possible it was drawn later, and it doesn't show the materiality of the facade. It's just some lines. In reality, it's not like this. It's almost like this because it's gray, and I don't know when this picture is from. Yes, towards the outside is rather it's rather stern as opposed to the inside, and this is the plan. Now, to have such a palace for yourself in Rome is not a little thing. Via Giulia. Antonio da Sangallo was not the most modest man in the world if he imagined this building to be for himself. He even has a gallery there, and Cortile and Jesus. He probably would have felt suffocated to live in a garçoniera, in a studio in Titan. 30 square meters, if not 18. Okay, we move forward. So what can we say? I mean, we are dealing with a successful architect who afforded beauty, afforded complexity. I mean, just to do this floor today would cost a fortune. Just the floor in stone. We are talking about stone, not linoleum. Maybe that's why Michelangelo hated him, because he saw this room and he didn't have something like this, because Michelangelo was a masochist. He made a lot of money himself, but he didn't build for himself such splendors, or they don't exist any longer. Now, this is a very interesting work. It's a well, and it's more like an engineering, but it's very, very impressive. St. Patrick's Well in Orvieto. Towards the outside is just this thing, look at the scale. If you contemplate the size of, two human beings there, but look how it looks inside, and it's very, very deep, with a stair around it. I don't know exactly what its function was, but I like what I see. It's true. I mean, it's construction, it's utilitarian construction, but it's very impressive through its architectural power. I don't mind at all it is not adorned with ornaments or decorations. This was not the place for something like this, and it's fine. Antonio da Sangallo in Orvieto. And look at the section. My God, this is deep indeed. If it was be like this, it didn't look so deep somehow in the pictures, but this is the drawing I found of the this. It is. I mean, look, it's quite deep. It's called an engineering marvel. Santa Maria di Loreto in Rome, a church, and apparently it's not far away from Trajan's column, the column that depicts the war between the Dacians and the Romans, that the Romans won, but it was a battle that consumed a lot the energies of the empire, and that's why they commemorated this war so emphatically. So this is the church by Antonio da Sangallo, even with some Baroque elements, it's almost going beyond the Renaissance. A square base, and then, of course, the culmination with a dome. This is the column here, so it's in the proximity of the column. So again, if you will visit Rome, and you'll arrive here almost without any doubt, and you'll remember this church built by Antonio da Sangallo. The problem in Rome is that there are so many important churches and so many important buildings that you can get dizzy easily because there are too many. Jewels after jewels after jewels of art and architecture. Here is the column, and here is the building by Antonio da Sangallo. Here are these beautiful trees that you see often in Rome. And the ceiling within the church, they work for the glory of God. What can we say? Maybe too much. San Giovanni dei Fiorentini in Rome, another church, different from the previous one, with a frontal main elevation, and yeah, again, Antonio da Sangallo the Younger. Maybe Frank Lloyd Wright hated the Renaissance, the European Renaissance, but I suspect also that Frank Lloyd Wright hated sometimes what he loved, because he was envious. But he hated it because he thought a true work of art should be a birth, not a rebirth, not a renaissance, not like a reactivated birth that took place in with 1,500 years earlier. He had a point, of course, but I think the Italian Renaissance, and not just the Italian one, was more than just of recycling old ideas and old aesthetics. No. Now, St. Peter's Basilica in Rome, where he was chief architect from 1520 on, I will only show his own project, which was not built. This is the model of the building as he intended, and what differentiated his work from all the others, Bramante, Raphael, and Michelangelo, was the presence of these two towers. This was distinctly his idea and his contribution. I actually wonder if it was built like this. I wonder if it would have been a bad thing or a good thing. I don't know. But I somehow feel that the proposal by Antonio da Sangallo is more exotic, almost with something, foreign, or almost, oriental somehow, because of those two towers. The way he externalized them physically, aesthetically. So here is his proposal, but it was not be like this. So these two towers do not exist, and know, the cupola was proposed by Michelangelo based on the plan of Bramante, and then the nave was lengthened by Maderno. And so all in all, he continued to work as a chief architect, but serving mostly the ideas of others. This is the section through the building as he proposed it. And somehow these towers make me think of Asia somehow, not so much of Europe. Villa Madama in Rome. I am approaching the end of this presentation. It should have been more ample, but maybe next year if I'll continue to do this. This was started in 1518. Even Raphael contributed here, his friend. I only show a picture. It's not very clear. I know there is some kind of a gallery was done by Raphael, but it was always very confusing to actually know who did what. And I didn't sign, you know, they work several architects, important architects on this building, but exactly what Antonio da Sangallo did, I don't know. And the Villa Farnese, so not the Palace Farnese, which you saw in Rome, but this is in Caprarola. The initial design was by Sangallo and Baldassare Peruzzi. Villa Farnese as opposed to the Farnese Palace or the Palace Farnese, where the French embassy is. So this is just a villa, and the initial design was done by da Sangallo. This like a short introduction in the work of Antonio da Sangallo on his birthday, because he was born today, and let's wish him happy birthday.